Since she was a teenager, Beverly Ehrig has had dreams and visions of an old house and a mysterious stranger standing alone on a windswept hill. It was quite literally Beverly's dream house, and after a chance meeting in a small Maryland town, this California native discovered her dream house was real. She felt compelled, even forced, to move in. And since then, everything has changed.
When I was 16, I started having a mental picture, a vision of a large white house on a hill.
At first, they were startling flashes of thought. A white house out of phase with reality. Over time, the visions grew longer and more detailed.
I would start getting a vision of a man. Age wasn't defined at that point in the visions. It was just a gentleman I knew that somehow knew that he owned the house, he owned the property.
Eventually, Beverly began to fill in more and more details until the visions became a kind of waking dream.
During the dreams, I would start to see the clarity in the interior of the home. I began seeing a gentleman, a Civil War soldier. He was speaking to a young girl, I'd say maybe age 18, 19. She seemed to be very anxious, very concerned that he leave.
A drama began to unfold, one in which Beverly felt she was somehow a player. She felt an eerie connection to the woman in her dream.
Sometimes I would pick up the emotional sense of a very loving situation or a very anxious situation, and sometimes extremely sad, very tearful.
For years, Beverly kept the visions secret. She married, raised 3 children, started a sewing shop. But when the family moved to Maryland in 1996, the whole strange story came tumbling out. It started when Paul Downs offered to rent to the Ehrigs, an historic house known as Plenty that Downs had inherited. The minute Beverly went inside, the line between dream and reality began to blur.
It was very shocking to me. It was alarming. I looked at him and I said, "This is the man that I had seen in the Union uniform."
Paul Downs' striking resemblance to the soldier in Beverly's dream was shocking, but no more so than her realization that this house was her dream house.
The further we went through the house, the more I realized this was actually the house that I had had the visions of prior. And coming up the driveway a little bit later, I realized this was also the visions I'd had of the home when I was 16.
Beverly felt she had to move into this house, and as soon as she did, the whole family began to experience haunting visions from another dimension.
Anyway.
On New Year's Day, we were downstairs in the music room, and it was my mother, my sister, and I. We were just reminiscing, laughing, and carrying on. We happened to look over, and a man had walked in the room. It startled all of us, and I think my heart stopped, and I just stood there.
She was very terrified at that moment, and I said, "You need to calm down." I said, "We evidently startled this person as much as they've startled us."
He was wearing a white ruffly shirt with a big ruffle collar and sleeves and a pair of dark pants, and he didn't have any feet.
And we looked up the style of the clothing, and it was the late 1700s.
Not all of the apparitions are this well defined. Beverly's husband, James, has seen ghostly, vaporous forms near an ancient oak in the front yard.
I would look over in that direction, and it would seem like a blurry object would be ducking behind the tree. And it would happen all different times of year. Everything behind it would be out of focus, like something was blocking the light. I don't know if it's out of this world or not. I just know that it wasn't natural.
In the sewing room, both Beverly and her daughter have seen brilliant lights swirl around the room, then disappear in a flash. The family dog also seems to be sensing the strange energy here.
On different occasions, he's wagged his tail and acts as though he's interacting with something that we don't see.
But one apparition in particular haunts her, the one which both Beverly and her daughter have seen.
As we came into the room, I felt almost a chill, and then a very warm sensation of someone had wrapped an electric blanket around you. It was a very, very nice feeling. and instantly got a mental picture of a woman who introduced herself as Mary.
This was the same woman who had haunted Beverly's visions since she was a teenager. Now she had a name, Mary, a name that Paul Downs discovered in land deeds from 1834.
If you go back in the deeds, there was a doctor and his wife by the name of Mary Diggs that did live in the house, Robert Diggs.
Mary and the other spirits, which the Earigs now believe are inside this house, all make their presence known through vision and sound. James has heard voices talking in hushed tones. Beverly and Alethea have heard footsteps, slamming doors, and furniture being moved. And it's not just the spirits of Mary and the soldier that want their presence known.
I was cleaning the top of the staircase and stood up and stepped back and physically bumped into someone. And it was a gentleman I had never seen before. He was dressed in, I would say, late 1700s. Of course, it's startling to realize that you have someone standing next to you that existed 200 years ago.
Was this hallucination? Had Mary transferred her visions to her family? No, she had not, because others who had lived here before had also seen and heard echoes from the past. As a boy, George Gardner lived at Plenty, and he told the Earigs they were not the first.
I would hear strange things, like I would hear the piano playing, and then at other times I would hear voices, lots of voices, like a group of people having an animated conversation, even sometimes like an argument.
George's niece, Carmel Bender, moved into the house in the late 1950s. She too heard voices and footsteps, but it was one eerie encounter on the staircase that still haunts her.
I remember feeling this something above me, and it was a male spirit hovering above me, and he asked me if I was okay.
Carmel recalls following the spirit into the master bedroom, where it was joined by another entity.
They're transparent and white, and they were talking and arguing in the master bedroom in front of the fireplace. And I finally got to see what I'd been hearing for so long.
Carmel believes she knows the identity of these spirits. One is her grandmother, Evangeline, who died in this very same bedroom under mysterious circumstances. The family was told that she'd hit her head on the bathtub, but Carmel has always doubted that this is the whole story.
There was never an autopsy done. My grandfather didn't want one done. And her death was kind of a mystery because we don't really know if she fell and hit her head. And I think that restlessness from that death may have something to do with the restlessness here in the spirits that live here.
With so many separate and credible accounts, and Beverly's eerie connection to the apparitions here, Sightings has asked two renowned paranormal investigators to comb the house for answers, to use the scientific means at their disposal to draw out the haunting activity at Plenty. Thomas Wolfe may have said, "You can't go home again." But Beverly Earig believes she has come home. And she believes the reason that she's been drawn to this house is somehow connected to the haunting activity inside. When Sightings returns, our scientific investigators begin to search for answers. In 1996, Beverly Earig came home to a place she'd never been before, a quaint Maryland plantation house that she had dreamed about for more than 20 years. Strangely, in an area full of historic homes, Beverly's is the only one the people of Port Tobacco don't seem to know anything about. All that is known is that the place is haunted. Beverly's house is now the site of intensive research being conducted by two eminent paranormal investigators who will try to identify the possible causes of the haunting. Al Rober, an expert in the collection of electronic voice phenomenon, will attempt to capture sound imprints on blank audio tape. He will use electromagnetic sensors to pinpoint the best recording locations.
EVP voices are actually voices that are commenting on things that are current, that are there. It's almost as if they're watching your every move. I mean, you know, you'll be doing something and they'll comment on it.
Parapsychologist Dr. William Roll will use special computer software and instruments to test for electromagnetic anomalies and other environmental factors that may be influencing the haunting here.
What's called hauntings may consist of natural occurrences.
Rober believes that because of its magnetic sensitivity, blank audio tape can pick up voices from another dimension. Rober begins by taking electromagnetic field readings and recording his findings.
You can feel a presence of someone in here.
People have reported that.
Right.
Spikes on the meter indicate possible sources for the haunting. Rober did not know that this is the location where the Erigs have seen the spirit they call Mary, but he found it with electronic equipment. He also pinpointed the location of another ghostly encounter based on his field readings. These are the locations, the master bedroom and Alethea's bedroom, where Rober will set up his EVP recording systems. These are the places where he believes the electromagnetism is ripe for haunting.
I certainly wouldn't doubt that there is activity in this house. As a matter of fact, I think there's probably strong evidence that there is.
Rober believes that a television tuned between channels creates a positive magnetic field that may attract the spirits. It is placed in the bedroom where Alethea has been awakened in the middle of the night by a warm, amorphous presence.
We'd like to ask or welcome any of the entities in this house to please utilize this microphone and this tape recorder, imprint your voice on this tape, and answer some questions for us. Come through, use the television. Who are you? Are you the person that was in Alethea's bed?
Later, reviewing the tapes from this recording session, Rober discovered what he believes is a male voice imploring, "Please, please." Dr. Roll asks, are these strange electromagnetic effects caused by the haunting, by psychic energy, or by natural phenomena?
Magnetic fields, magnetic energy, can have two effects. It can produce straightforward physical occurrences which may seem really strange, such as floating lights, electrical discharges that will sound like somebody knocking on the door or even footsteps. And then also magnetic energy may interact with the human brain to trigger parapsychological occurrences, so-called psychic phenomena.
Dr. Roll does a complete geological survey of the area first, because he believes that fault zones and rivers can affect electromagnetic fields. He has also found that homes built on a hill are often built on layers of sandstone that can store large amounts of electricity naturally, and that electricity may sometimes be discharged in bursts.
With respect to plenty, this estate, the bedrock is about 2,000 feet down, so that's a substantial distance. We don't feel at this time that we are really dealing with natural sources of magnetic energy, but rather man-made magnetic energy produced by electrical installations, really.
Having excluded geological factors, Dr. Roll begins to investigate electrical features inside the house. He too pinpoints Alethea's bedroom, where Al Rober had recorded EVP earlier.
This is a place in the house where the electric current feeds into the home. So there's a strong magnetic field in that part of the house. The occurrences tend to happen late at night, early morning. These are the times when the human brain is most sensitive to these magnetic fields, and you will then very likely have unusual experiences.
But Dr. Roll found some of his highest readings in Beverly's sewing room.
Now you see here, look at this very high magnetic field, it's very high. Beverly spends most of her working days in a very strong magnetic field produced by her sewing machines. The lights could be simply electric occurrences produced by strong magnetic fields.
There are also high readings in the master bedroom, where several generations of eyewitnesses have seen apparitions, and Beverly's presence seems to be influencing the meter. Al Rober encourages Beverly to ask the questions during an impromptu recording session.
I'd like to ask if you could please give us your name.
After the session, Rober listened to the blank tape and heard what he believes is another communication from beyond the grave.
The whole concept or idea of getting a voice on tape, and it's a room that apparently there's been a lot of activity in, you know, you're starting to build the blocks that you need to come up with a case for a haunting.
But how did Beverly know about this haunting and this place before she ever moved here?
It's a mystery I would like solved. I would like some conclusion to what's been going on and taking place over the several decades in my life.
Whether the haunting is the result of man-made phenomena, as Dr. Roll postulates, or the result of paranormal forces, as Al Rober believes, Beverly is still left with the vision that has followed her for more than 20 years. So Sightings has asked regression therapist Barbara Lane to work with Beverly, and we've asked psychic Peter James to survey the house.
And the interesting thing now will be if the psychic that comes in to read the house picks up something similar. I think that would certainly be evidential if that had happened.
On the next edition of Sightings, paranormal investigator Peter James will conduct his own survey of Beverly's dream house and attempt to psychically connect the dots in the ongoing mystery of plenty. On a past program, we brought you the incredible story of Beverly Ehrig and her search for a dream house, literally. Since she was a teenager, Beverly had dreamt about an old house and a man standing on a hill above it. In a bizarre twist of fate, Beverly met a man like the man in her dream, and he owned a house identical to the one she'd been dreaming about. So the question is, was Beverly really dreaming or remembering? The dreams were disturbing at first. Where did they come from, and what did they mean? Beverly worried that she was going crazy until she moved into the real-life house that matched her visions, and her family began seeing the same apparitions that had haunted her since childhood. Our first Sightings investigation answered the how and when of the haunting here when we found measurable pockets of anomalous energy, but the why remains a mystery. Why are Beverly, this house, and these ghosts bound together in dream and reality? Clinical hypnotherapist Barbara Lane believes she may have discovered an answer.
Just listening to the sound of my voice, and your eyelids are getting heavier and heavier, harder and harder to keep them open. And now just close your eyes, and just listen to the sound of my voice. What's your name?
Mary.
She recalled under hypnosis being Mary, and she saw herself. She recalls a relationship with a friend in that lifetime at 16 years old.
Under hypnosis, as Mary, Beverly revealed new details about the male ghost.
What is the coat?
It's part of a uniform.
And what uniform is that?
Military. He's going to go away.
What do you think about this?
I don't want it. I don't want it to go.
Then, in a deep hypnotic state, Beverly revealed that the soldier ghost of her past life could be found in human form in this life. It was the man who had inherited the house from his ancestors. It was Paul Downs, her landlord.
Paul was in Beverly's regression, and he was the gentleman, her friend, when she was 16 years old. He was the one dressed in the Union uniform. And in this lifetime, I do know that he recreates Civil War reenactments. So I do find that very interesting that he is drawn to the Civil War.
Barbara Lane believes that there are paranormal forces at work in Paul's house that have drawn Beverly here and will keep her here.
I do think that there is a connection with Beverly and with Mary. I do think there's a connection with the past, a historical connection, a soul connection.
But why have the past lives of Mary and the soldier come back to haunt the present?
Perhaps because something was not resolved in that lifetime. She has had a specific draw to come back and to resolve it in this lifetime.
Lane believes that the spirits are trying to deliver a message. First, reaching out to Beverly, and now to her entire family. But what is that message? Peter James believes that he knows. Peter is a psychic investigator who claims to have the power to communicate with the dead. Sightings invited Peter to Port Tobacco, Maryland, and brought him to the house known as Plenty for his psychic impressions. Beverly and her family were moved to a neighbor's house during Peter's initial visit to prevent any direct or indirect influence. Standard and thermovision cameras were used to record Peter's revelations, particularly startling because he knew nothing of the activity here.
There are two men, males, that are in uniform. This dates back to the time of our union of our country. One is older, one is younger. This younger man, he does walk this house, and it feels like he's here with a broken heart. It feels like he's looking for a younger female that keeps looking out the door, out the window, in anticipation of someone coming back. And this person coming back wears the uniform.
This emotional connection had been a constant theme in Sightings' earlier interview with Beverly.
I felt very close to her. It was easy to pick up her emotional state, very, very much so. I felt that she was very, very fond of and very close to the soldier.
As Peter began to voice his impressions, a sweet smell wafted down the stairway.
There's a sweet smelling. Is it the house?
The Sightings team smelled it too. Peter claimed that this was a physical manifestation of a female spirit.
Right here. Look, right here. Right here. Look. Quietly. Someone is standing right there. Don't shine your light on it. Hello? There's that male. There's a man in a uniform standing right there. Hello? The young lady and the young man in uniform are both, they're both on this floor. Look, something just grazed the top of my head. Hello?
I got some registration exactly when you said that.
Did you? Yeah. Yes, there's something right here.
Right now.
Yeah.
When the tape from the thermovision camera was played back, the team found this. An unexplained wave of cold on the stairway, visible on thermovision despite the fact that all the doors and windows in the house were closed. It was eerie because this stairway has been a paranormal hotspot for years. It was also one of the locations where Al Rober had earlier recorded what he believes are voices from beyond the grave. Rober is an expert in EVP, electronic voice phenomenon. Before Peter's arrival, Rober had made recordings throughout the house. One of the loudest sounds was recorded here in the master bedroom. It was the same bedroom where Peter had one of his strongest psychic hits.
Someone died in this room.
Peter did not know that this is the room where Carmel Bender, who had lived here in the 50s, had seen a mysterious apparition. Nor did he know that her grandmother had died here under suspicious circumstances.
Her death was kind of a mystery because we don't really know if she fell and hit her head.
When Peter went into the bathroom where Carmel's grandmother had supposedly hit her head on the tub, he had a disturbing vision.
I get a sense here that someone contemplated suicide in this room.
Then he moved into the room where Mary had been seen most often, and there his impressions moved further back in time.
Has anyone mentioned seeing the lady in waiting in this room?
Yes.
Yeah, because feels like this was her room. Clairaudiently, I hear her sobbing, almost hysterically, because it feels like she's received the news that her beau is not coming back.
I felt she had a strong attachment to looking out the window. It was easy for me to understand how she was feeling, the sadness, the looking, the searching for someone, something.
I think her name begins with an M.
Peter sensed a connection between this spirit and Beverly. We agreed to bring Peter and the Earigs together at this point so Peter could attempt a spirit communication.
I'd like to come back to this room later because I think I'm going to communicate with someone in this room. I think we're going to have a little action in this room, guys.
Remember, Peter James had no information about the investigations that had come before. He'd never met Beverly, nor anyone in Port Tobacco for that matter. And Peter had no knowledge of Beverly's past life memories of Mary and her soldier beau. But Peter James had somehow seen it all. And in a moment, we'll have the revealing conclusion of Peter's investigation. In the antebellum house in Virginia known as Plenty, psychic investigator Peter James found a wealth of haunting activity. He identified the spirits of a slave, a soldier, and a grieving woman named Mary. It was only after this initial survey that Peter was allowed to meet Beverly Earig and hear her amazing confirmation of his psychic visions. After making his initial psychic impressions alone, with no background information, Peter was allowed to meet Beverly Earig, her family, and the home's owner, Paul Downs.
I feel like there is a young female. I did not get a name, but I got a letter M, female, that was here, and I got a sense of her going back to the door, looking, or perhaps in anticipation of her loved one, expecting him to come back, but he doesn't come back.
To me, it was a wonderful experience, a very emotional experience. I was feeling tears of joy because this confirmed that the people and the events that I kept sensing and experiencing do exist here. They are present, and they do coexist with myself and my family.
Listen. They're sobbing. Listen, they're crying. Listen. Now listen.
Hello? Communicate with me.
When Peter came up, we were going up the stairs, he asked to have Mary make herself known to us. And then he said, give us something that we can all identify with. And the scent of her cologne, her perfume, became overwhelming.
He called down the spirit of Mary and to introduce me to the scent that I've been smelling here for years. I just never put two and two together.
In the master bedroom where Peter had previously sensed the mysterious death of Evangeline Gardner, Peter had another hit.
Do you know if medical people met here regularly?
A doctor lived here.
A doctor lived here, okay. Okay, that's why I felt medical.
In the room where Peter had earlier sensed a female spirit and the letter M, he revealed a name everyone but Peter already knew.
Who's here? See now, the M. The name sounds like Marie, or Maria, or Mary.
Mary.
Is it Mary?
Yes.
And he pointed out the name either Mary or Maria. And so, we kind of looked at each other and we said, yeah, he's definitely tuned in on something.
I hear her sobbing hysterically, just pacing.
I think strongest emotionally was when he began to describe, he could hear Mary crying.
Handle the news that someone is not coming back. It's very sad.
I knew what she was sobbing about was the fact that he had chosen not to come back of his own will, because at that time I had visions of the Civil War soldier receiving an injury to his leg, making him feel less than complete.
Peter sensed that injury in the spirit and in one of those present, too.
Someone have a bad knee? Me?
Yes,
You have a bad
Mr.
knee?
Downs.
I do have, I've got a bad knee. I have an old athletic injury. I never even met the man before, and I didn't know it was that obvious. I was kind of surprised about his accuracy. He seemed to be right on the money.
Beverly believes that Paul's injury and the injury of the soldier spirit are not coincidental. She has long felt that Paul and the spirit are connected through a shared past life.
I am totally convinced that Paul and I have known each other for hundreds of years.
I feel that Beverly and Paul have been together in a former life as well. And they're together now because there's some unfinished business to accomplish.
For confirmation, Peter called up the spirit of Mary.
It's cold, yeah. She's here. Mary, Mary, make your presence known. Speak to me. Mary. I think that Beverly could have been Mary in a former life. And Mary is able to recognize her sense of who she is now, and it's like looking into a mirror.
The living factor, the day-to-day life factor of feeling like I'm possibly Mary and vice versa is very easy to accept, especially now.
Like I said, I'd pretty much say I'm pretty much a believer now, just from what I've seen around here, and the fact that I had definite proof of just tying together the presence of Mary as well as the cologne or the fragrance, which is something that I've had for years. I just never paid any mind to it.
Beverly feels right at home here, as she did many, many years ago, I believe, in a former life. When she arrived here the first time, she felt at ease and very much at home. Since all of this has been brought to light now more favorably from her perspective, that she's going to feel more at ease, and she'll be able to better cohabitate with the spirits that are in the house.
I think that we're going to move forward here at Plenty, continue to coexist. It's just a wonderful experience to know that I have reference several hundred years ago to draw from, to continue into the future.
Having the past come back to haunt you is something a lot of people dread, especially politicians. But for Beverly Ehrig, finding the house called Plenty and connecting with the entities that she believes are living there has brought her full circle. Finally, Beverly says her past has shown her where she belongs.